My name is Isabella Altair, and I am the program coordinator at Maryland History Day. Today we're going to be talking about the bibliography for History Day. I'll give an overview of the NHD Bibliography rules, some tools for working on it in the classroom, and then some pointers about primary versus secondary sources. A bibliography, most simply, is a collection of resources that are used to create a research project. Bibliographies collect information about the source, including the creator, title, and some publishing information. Students should create one entry in their bibliography for each source that they consult. Entries are sorted alphabetically by the first letter of the entry, and for History Day, they're also separated into primary and secondary sources. Bibliographies are formatted according to style guides such as MLA, APA, and Chicago. Both MLA and Chicago are acceptable for National History Day, although NHD does prefer the use of Chicago. You can find information about the Chicago style at the website Chicago Manual of Style or at the website Purdue OWL. Other bibliography rules that get more specific can be found on the National History Day Rulebook and on this page of the National History Day website. Many of the rules for History Day are created so that the viewer can look at entries and review them or judge them fairly and easily. So this benefits both you as the teacher and the judges at a contest. For example, exhibit students should put a short citation under each image that they add to their board. This allows the judges or you to easily see the image information and to understand where the students got that information from. You can find specific citation rules for each category on the NHD website as well. If the information about this citation and bibliography is brand new to you, we highly recommend checking in with your library resource teacher, a media specialist, or a librarian at a local library to give you some pointers and maybe come and visit your classroom. History Day also requires an annotated bibliography. An annotated bibliography is a little bit of a step further than just a list of resources. Annotations are 2 to 3 sentences at the end of the bibliographical entry. They describe how the student used the research and where it shows up in their project. In this example, the student has written 2 sentences about this source. They explain how the source was used and how it helped them understand their topic. Annotations can also be a little bit simpler and shorter than this. For example, for photographs. A student could write, "This photograph of Dorothea Lange helped me understand what my figure looked like. I used this photograph at the beginning of the introduction section so that viewers would see who I was talking about." We consider the annotated bibliography to be a very important part of the History Day process. The bibliography allows students to show you the research that they've done, and it gets them closer to writing like a historian. Having them create an annotated bibliography also instills in students skills like note-taking and project management that we think are very important skills learned from the History Day program. We do frequently hear that the History Day bibliography can be a little challenging to teach. The bibliography is a big skill for students, especially if they're starting out with research. In this video, we'll discuss some methods for you to use and adopt. I also want to stress that while the contest level has many expectations for students, your classroom project can and should be scaled to your students' level. We know that even starting to create a list of entries to the student will help them develop these research skills. Now I'm going to discuss some tools for teaching the bibliography. The most important tip from our expert teachers is to create a system for your students to work on their bibliographies. This system should allow the students to save their work and take good notes, and it should allow you to access and monitor that information. There are many types of suggestions on the internet for systems you can use, but we like to recommend using Noodle Tools or Google Classroom or a similar system. As their teacher, you can log in and monitor and comment on their work. We've included this screenshot provided by one of our expert teachers that illustrates how she communicates through Noodle Tools. You can see that she's logged in and reminded the student to tag some of their sources as primary or secondary, and that the student is also able to ask questions of their teacher through the system. Noodle Tools has the ability to change settings depending on the grade and expert level of the students. This will change how many options they see when they go to create a citation. For example, the starter level has the fewest number of options and is created for elementary to middle school students. While Noodle Tools is a paid resource, they do have a partnership with National History Day where they provide a subscription for students doing History Day projects in schools for one History Day season. Maryland History Day also has resources available for you to import into your Google Classroom or to use with a similar system. Our Padlet has all the resources that we've created throughout the years. Here you can see the note-taking guide. This sheet prompts students to enter the citation at the top with a summary space below. Students who create this sheet for each source save them, then can go and fill out their bibliography very easily by finding the information that they've saved. You can also go in as they're working on their research and make sure that they're creating their citations well, so that when it comes for them to submit their final citation, it's not a big headache because they've already done that work. One more tip that I want to show is the ThinkPort modules. ThinkPort modules are a series of videos paired with tasks that can help students understand topics all throughout History Day, including analyzing primary sources such as cartoons, analyzing political articles, and creating citations in a bibliography. Maryland History Day, along with the Teaching with Primary Sources program and Maryland Public Television, have created these modules to guide students through the History Day bibliography. This can be a great practice for students to get comfortable with working on their citations. Remember that your students will not find perfection the first time, and that's okay. Most students won't move on to a History Day contest, so especially if this is their first time doing any kind of research, they will make many mistakes. If they learn how to keep track of their sources in 6th grade, how to find publishing data in 7th grade, and how to format indentations in 8th grade, they'll be more than ready to go into high school and to work on high school level projects. Now we're going to do a deep dive into primary and secondary sources. A History Day bibliography is supposed to be separated into primary and secondary sources and sorted by alphabetical order within those sections. For contests, that's so that the judges can easily look and see where the students used primary and secondary sources and fill out the rubric sheet. But for the classroom, it allows students to show that they've learned what the difference between a primary and a secondary source is. Not only is this skill of learning the difference very important for historical research, it's also vital in our modern day. We often hear that primary sources are items created from a time period that we're studying and that secondary sources are created after. However, that's not entirely correct and is not really fully nuanced enough and can create some confusion. Primary sources are those that give us first-hand or prime information. For example, a television interview with a Vietnam veteran taken in 1970 and an interview with a Vietnam veteran in 2022 are both primary sources. A student may also choose, for example, to compare two photographs of the same location next to each other. For example, a photo of downtown Baltimore taken in 1901 before the Great Baltimore Fire, and a modern-day photo of downtown Baltimore in 2022 that maybe they took themselves. Both of these would be considered primary sources because it shows the actual evidence that we're looking at. Secondary sources are those that are removed from the first-hand information. This includes anything that uses a primary source in aggregate or to make an overview, including textbooks and encyclopedias. It also includes anything that makes an argument using the primary sources, such as a journal article and a historical book. We asked an expert teacher how she describes the difference to students, and she said, "I always tell students that it depends on the question that they're asking. For example, if I ask them what their history textbook is, almost all of them would say a secondary source. If I tell them the question is about the Aztec Empire, then their textbook information is secondary. But if the question is, how did students learn about the world history in 2022, now the textbook is primary. It helps them change how they think of sources, not just putting them into primary and secondary columns." The same expert teacher also told us that she has posters in her classroom as anchors for students when they're doing their bibliography work. These anchors, which you can see here, describe what a primary and secondary source is and reinforce the definitions to students. This additional poster focuses on annotations, reminding the student of the purpose and details of the annotation. One important thing to note is that we recommend having students do these as they're doing their research. That way, again, they're not scrambling at the very end of their project to create the bibliography. Whichever method you choose to collect the information, remember that National History Day Rulebook can always help you with the details of citation and creating a bibliography. However, you can help them understand why the bibliography is so important and help them think more deeply about each resource.